Welcome to a new daily top AskReddit video. Today's topic.
What's something simple that can actually kill someone accidentally that isn't common knowledge? A grape. My wife had a friend, co-worker whose young daughter choked to death in front of her and her mother. They tried to dislodge the grape and nothing worked. By the time an ambulance got there, the girl was brain dead. It's about the worst thing I can imagine as a parent. We were cutting our kids' grapes in half until they were 10 after that happening. When I was 2, I was at a family party and grabbed a whole grape out of the fruit salad and choked. My Aunt Nancy was 10 natty lights deep and performed the Heimlich maneuver and saved my life. She passed away earlier this year. Rip Aunt Nancy. Pour one out for Aunt Nancy. A dental infection. I went to grief support meetings, and a woman there lost her son to an impacted tooth that spread infection to his brain. This is why seeing those veneer techs pop up drives me insane. Some of them are putting veneers, crowns over decay, not knowing, or not caring, that it will probably create an abscess or infection. It is so dangerous. Just scheduled an appointment with my dentist cause of this post. Cracked a wisdom tooth but it doesn't hurt, so I've been lazy about it the past week. Paying $400 to have the tooth removed, with insurance, fucking hurts though. Just an anecdote for ya, I skipped the dentist for 7 years after college when it became my responsibility. The amount I had to pay for fillings, crowns by the time all was said and done, somewhere in the ballpark of $7,000. Highly recommend not making my mistake lol. Hitting your head. TBI is full of stories about simple slips and falls that resulted in death, at least temporarily, and lasting effects. I simply fell on ice at work. Bam, unconscious, woke up saying, I was okay. Got talked into getting in an ambulance. Started dying in the ambulance from a severe brain bleed. Coma, expected to die, survived. Lost most of my memory, emotional stability, the ability to easily make new memories, a ton of IQ. Still, in all, I'm not dead. Ed, so many stories. So much loss. So sorry for all your losses. And carry the information to others. I'm so happy that protocols for brain injuries have improved so much. If you hit your head and lose consciousness, get to a hospital stat. Be careful. And wear a damn helmet. Your life is important. Just did a rotation in a rehab hospital. I was on the stroke unit, but you would be shocked at how many people over in brain injury had fallen off those stupid e-scooters. Also, I'm sorry to hear about your accident. As you said, TBI can change your life pretty quickly. Sounds like you have the right outlook, though. Cheerleading. I had an accident and almost died because one of my teammates lost balance while I was on top, and that caused to fall. That fall broke my neck and I haven't been able to walk or move most of my body ever again. I cheered and then coached all-star and high school. People outside of that sport have no idea how dangerous it can be. I have seen some insane injuries. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I don't understand how people can watch a person get tossed 15 feet in the air and not get that it's a dangerous sport. Playing in a deep hole at the beach. I had a friend who as a student had a holiday job in construction. One day he was digging a trench which collapsed on him and he was dug out by his crew. It was about midday, but they all knocked off for the day and went to the pub where they all got drunk, which he though was great as they were buying. When he asked if it was some sort of tradition, they explained that usually the person caught in the trench didn't survive. Shit, that's quite heavy. Lucky lad getting out. We got a very scary close call with friends. 4-2-2-2-5 dudes digging a hole for hours. It was like 3 meters deep and all of a sudden one of the sides crumble, burying one of my friend from the waist down, like it's impossible for him to move. Needless to say, we got him out and closed the hole ASAP. If the hole is chest high, can a collapse restrict breathing? Rags covered in linseed oil can spontaneously combust when left in a pile. I randomly discovered this fact in a Reddit post titled, "The New Guy Burned Down Our Workshop." A carpenter I know confirmed that this is a real thing. I've been getting into refinishing old furniture, so I'm glad I learned this now. You'd think it'd be more common knowledge. My wife started getting into wood staining for her crafts. When she went out to get the finishing oils, I told her to also pick up a proper means of disposing for this very reason. When she asked the person assisting her at Home Depot if they had a recommendation for a container to use for disposal, he told her that was an old wives' tale and then went on to explain that he had thousands of hours of experience staining and had never seen such a thing. Massively infuriating. Curious how much damage this one person's stupidity has caused. Every wood shop I was in from middle school to high school, we had metal trash type cant in our finishing room and also air extraction. That dude's an idiot. Ladders. People think you have to fall far to get hurt or die. 8 feet is plenty. I was always told falling your own height can kill you. I had a patient fall while checking the mail. Hit on the thin part of the side of the skull. She projectile puked while intubating her, then she arrested, slowly herniated and died that night. Former paramedic. Getting drunk, going to sleep and choking on your own vomit. Always lay your drunk friends on their side, and lift their chin to open their airway. Do not lay them on their backs. Friend died aged 32. I believe this is how Jimi Hendrix died. Also John Bonham from Led Zeppelin, and Bon Scott from AC/DC. Seems to be a common way to go for rock stars. LMAO. Flowing water inches deep can still have the strength to sweep you away if you're not careful. When I was a kid, one of my friends died this way. The family was fording a shallow river in a jacked-up troopy and the undercurrent swept the car away immediately. Mum, Dad, sister escaped in time. My mate, around 7 years old, couldn't undo his seatbelt fast enough and drowned. Fording a shallow river in a jacked-up troopy. Translation for all of that. Being shoved. Seen too many videos of fights, scuffles where someone is shoved or punched, and the trip on concrete and suffer fatal TBIs hitting their head on concrete. The brain is fragile. Protect it. One of my friends was mucking around with me at school, kinda play fighting, and tripped me over. I hit my head on the concrete, and I have 2 vague memories after falling of being walked through the hallways supported by someone, then appearing in the nurse's office. I was proper concussed by the incident and had a routine CT scan to check for brain injury. That was fine, but they inadvertently found an arachnoid cyst which was 13 centimeters long and taking up about 1/3 of my skull, pushing my brain to the side. To briefly explain what that is, your brain is surrounded by a membrane, and in between that membrane and your brain is called the subarachnoid space. Cerebrospinal fluid goes through fluid pathways in that space to coat your brain. Due to a defect that was likely there since birth, one of the fluid pathways had a dead end, and from the natural circulation of CS fluid this was extremely slowly filling up that part of the membrane like a water balloon. Your brain is actually extremely compressible like a sponge with no bad effects to a certain point if it happens slowly enough. I likely would not have detected the cyst until eventually starting to get really bad migraines and more serious symptoms a lot later in life. Had an operation to have an internal tube installed that now drains the cyst like an IV drip into my abdominal cavity. Since CS fluid is basically just saline, it just gets harmlessly absorbed by the tissue there. TL.DR, got concussed from a fall, brain scan after found a much more serious medical issue purely by coincidence. Since this blew up a bit more than I expected, here's a CT shot of the cyst for the curious. Brain is white, the cyst is the dark area. Image. People don't realize that a lot of people who die in house fires die in their sleep. The fire is too small to wake them from the heat alone, or it's farther away, yet it is releasing carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide along with a ton of other toxic fumes into the air. You are just sleeping, breathing in that gas, which makes you even more tired and eventually completely unconscious, then dead. TBF, I'd rather die like that in a house fire than wide awake and screaming. What's that old joke? If I die I want to go out like my grandfather. Peacefully in his sleep, not screaming and yelling like his passengers. Pressure washers are quite lethal. Can confirm, pressure washers are dangerous. My one stripped a layer of my sandal sole off when I accidentally blasted my foot with it and it stung for about a day. It's not a super duper ultra powerful pressure washer either. To add to this thread, wearing sandals while pressure washing is unsafe. Allergies. A guy at work didn't believe a coworker had a deadly peanut allergy and had to try it out. The victim had luck that the medical center in our company has a doctor in medicine. I have a friend who has an extreme nut allergy. He ordered a soy latte at a Starbucks once. They were apparently out of soy and substituted almond milk. He fortunately noticed it tasted off immediately, asked the barista, who said, "We were out of soy. Almond milk is better for you anyway." And when he had to go to the bathroom to make himself puke, her response was that he was just overreacting. He did talk to a manager eventually, but after making sure he was healthy, okay, not dying. He still left the store with that barista confused as to what was wrong. SMH. Almond milk is better for you anyway. He did talk to a manager eventually, but after making sure he was healthy, okay, not dying. He still left the store with that barista confused as to what was wrong. SMH. This has very, it's what plants crave, vibes, lol. Fire that coworker. Fire. Arrest that coworker for attempted murder. And sue, press charges. That's messed up. Reading this post for anxious people grimace. If you're worried about any symptoms you have, do not look them up online. Stress is another killer. Great, now I am even more stressed. A high pressure puncture wound, high pressure injections. https://www.merckmanuals.com/n-ca/home/special-subject/occupational-and-environmental-medicine/high-pressure-injuries. Imagine you're wearing all your PPE, got your goggles, your gloves, etc. And you're working with high-pressure liquids. I'm not talking cutting steel with water jets, just something with high enough pressure that can pierce or puncture the skin. And bang, you get a little stab from a pressurized fluid source. Not even bleeding that much, if at all. Sometimes it's just a little sting, but you go to medical and get the assistance, and after a day, your hand is sore but otherwise fine. If you obtain one of these injuries and don't alert the medical staff, you typically lose the limb. It can be just as bad with water, steam as with chemicals. This was a safety moment at my company due to a mechanic getting a pinprick while changing a line. While he went for medical help, he didn't tell them it was a high-pressure wound. As such, he progressively lost 3 fingers on his hand because the substances were blasted into muscle tissues and caused necrosis, slowly. Not fluids, but I had a teacher in the union who had a nail in his brain. He was an elevator worker and shooting very thin nails into the shaft to reinforce certain parts. He said one sparked and he thought nothing of it. When he came up, his buddy noticed a tiny hole and crack in his glasses and told him he needs to get it checked out. Teacher insisted he probably just dropped them earlier, but the coworker made him go to the ER. And of course they found a 3-inch nail in his brain and couldn't remove it. It's a miracle it never affected him or anything. He was the one that got me to buy S&W ballistic safety glasses that can stop .22 mag. Wear 'em every day. Edit, to clarify, the nail went in right next to his eye, more to the sides of the glasses. As far as I know, it is still in his brain to this day. It was a very thin nail. He has to take some pills to prevent some kind of further damage from the metal too, I believe. It happened in the late 90s. I haven't seen him since I left the union 5 years ago. A few years ago there was an accident at the company across the street from where I work, and it was a hydraulic line that burst. The line came loose and basically cut a guy in half with hydraulic oil. Arguably worse than my example. Geez, what a way to go. My buddy worked on a Navy ship doing repairs. When there was a high pressure leak somewhere, you'd literally sweep the area with a broom held at arm's length. When the broom got cut in half, you'd found your leak. They were invisible to the naked eye, but easily high pressure enough to go straight through a body without a problem. Terrifying shit.